The much anticipated episode of The Eye. Episode 6 was purely spectacular, saying this literally. It was the spectacle that happened in this episode was quite beautiful, but also the escape as well. And that's why I kind of love Andor, because the Andor series does not go for the cliches. It absolutely showed us the real nitty-gritty of getting a band together this quickly. The dysfunctionality, chemistry is not there, and by the end, as you saw, it completely fell apart. And this series shows you that it's not the Disney kiddie show. This how things would go on for real. And there's some details as well inside this episode that kind of left me baffled. It is breaking every single rule that Star Wars kind of showed. The episode starts with the gang prepping for nightfall and when the eye spectacle will start. We then realize a chief Imperial called J-Holt that is actually running the show on Aldhani, and that Lieutenant Gorn is his subordinate. He is trying to impress Colonel Petragas. All his manipulative schemes towards the Dani people all throughout the years that have dwindled their numbers to now just 60 coming to the viewing party. Everything needs to be perfect for J-Holt, who is hoping that this colonel will at the very least grant him a transfer off this stinky rock, and this is what this series does. They immediately show us J-Holt's family, his wife and kid, who seem to be at a crossroads. They seem to not be happy with their location and as well with their husband/father. The plan now starts to take hold. Once the Dani people make their way to their sacred monument, the four guys start to get into formation. During this time, we also hear the call sign Echo 1, showing us the origins of the rebel call signs that we will later see in Rogue One and A New Hope. We also learn that Terramin was actually a stormtrooper before this, showing that this group is basically formed from former Imperials and members who have vendetta against the Empire because they killed their family and so forth and so forth. You would think this would be a great bond, but again, by the end, we realize many people are out for themselves, not only Cassian Andor. In multiple places, there are Imperial groups, or Imperial troops, I should say, formed to guide the Dani people who have been trekking for a long time to come to their sacred monument. While Val is taking shelter, we again hear a breaking sort of the rule moment where one of the unknown soldiers that have seen the Dani people pass come by there, and he actually insinuates he was very patient with one of the Dani girls because he wanted to do something, literally insinuating our word that we know happens in these sort of situations where somebody has power over you, especially what the Imperials would have done all over the galaxy. The four guys form up, and once the ceremony begins, J-Holt goes out to meet the elder of the Dani people. This is when Lieutenant Gorn gets the group into action. You see, Lieutenant Gorn chooses the rebels to actually escort them inside the base, with J-Horn not knowing that they are actually defectors that will attack. Once they are inside, they immediately capture J-Horn, Colonel Petragas, and J-Horn's family. With one trooper inside, it is Cinta who actually kills Colonel Petragas because he drew the blaster first, and this is when things get into motion. Before that, Val and Cinta had scrambled all the signals so that they could not communicate except the Elkenzi base. Once they get into position, Lieutenant Gorn also makes himself known that he is the traitor. This is when they start loading the entire payload of the sector. A huge score, which by the end, even partial, they could not even load the entire credits. Even the partial load was 80 million credits, which by any account is a lot. One of the officers, though, that we've seen in previous episodes, he catches wind of not only the scrambled signal, but also Cinta communicating with the guys down low who are taking the loot, and goes down to investigate. At this point, Also, the Alkenzi base is prepped to release TIE fighters because they suspect something is wrong, and this is when all hell breaks loose. Corporal Kimsey shoots at Lieutenant Gorn first, he gets it, then the shooting starts. Terramin gets shot as well. It isn't until Val rescued that the gang, now what remains of the gang essentially, Cassian, Val, Skeen, and Nemec, who immediately gets trampled by one of the credit cargoes, and this leaves him at first paralyzed but in great danger as well. However, it really shows the heroic actions of Nemec not only as they are starting out, but even at the finish, Nemec gets them outside of this planet with the dangers of the spectacle above. They are essentially meteorites that will crush you, and the TIE fighters behind them who get essentially destroyed by the energy blasts. However, the big shock and the big reveal comes after this, believe it or not, because while Nemec is getting healed by a doctor in an outside planet somewhere, with Val inside the tent caring for Nemec, this is when we get the twist that Skeen reveals himself to be another survivor, similar to Cassian, who basically proposes to Cassian that they split the reward 50-50, which is 80 million credits, split 40 his way and 40 his way. And what's more, Skeen has a holdout, a safe house essentially, that they can rest there while the case goes cold, then they can re-emerge. Andor at first plays it cool and probes him to see how he could do this to his friends, and smartly, while Skeen is talking, he pulls out his briar pistol and shoots him, kills him on the spot. Now, the beauty of this show is that we will never know if Skeen was actually setting him up or really making an offer that they abandon their friends and just go their separate ways while taking the loot. Cassian goes to Val and realizes that Nemec had already died. There was nothing they could do for him, but with his pistol drawn at them, he tells him that Skeen did actually betray them in the end, something that Val does not seem to believe. We again don't know the real answer. Does Val believe Cassian or not? It isn't really the point, because Cassian just simply tells her to give the Kyber crystal back and that he will take his payment that he was promised and be on his way. This is where we leave things with Cassian, Val, and the gang, but in the end, as we closed out the last episode, we again see the episode closed out on Luthen's shop when he finally realizes that the heist has gone well and that the Empire has been given a blackened eye. It was also nice to see the Senate one more time, although we see that the bureaucracy has gotten to the maximum level. The gridlock is on site. Mon Mothma could not even get people to hear what she has to say, let alone pass any sort of legitimate law or legislator. In essence, everything went off kind of according to plan for Cassian Andor. It did not leave him with this belief that the rebellion has started. It left us with complete dysfunctional disorganization, and it's interesting to see now with episode 7 next week how things are going to move along, because we have to see Cassian Andor be convinced that this rebellion thing is really worth it and that he needs to come back to Luthen's fold and they could jumpstart this thing once and for all. What do you guys think about the episode? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you can have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you. Until then.